within that market segment. This slide shows you our three main product categories. On the far left is our flagship device, that's the UV350. Next to that is our first generation product. That's still selling today, but they essentially operate in the same way. They are hardwired to vehicles, they are connected directly to the battery, and they address a pretty unique market segment. 3.5 million first responders in the US, almost 18 million commercial vehicles, and another 3.5 million within Canada. So fairly large market segment. Within our rugged handset market, which is the middle column, we have two main products within that category, flip phone and a tablet. This is even a larger market opportunity in terms of volume, 47 million enterprise workers within North America. And the last product category is on the far right is our cellular boosters. And these are devices that take any incoming cellular signal, and boost that signal to provide a better bandwidth and more consistent connectivity. So I'll describe each of those product categories in detail. And category one, this is the UV350 device. As you can see, it has dedicated buttons on both the side and the top. It comes attached with we sell a remote mic. It can also be connected to external antennas to provide additional boost. This is an Android-based operating system device. So that means you can download now any Android compatible app, including push-to-talk over cellular software. But the key differences with this device versus, say, your smartphone is this is designed very specifically to work in noisy environments. It has great noise cancellation, a loudspeaker. So when you're in a noisy truck versus your car, which is quite insulated with sound, it doesn't work terribly well in a noisy environment. So our device is specifically designed to manage that kind of environment. Very much akin to why every boardroom in North America has a Polycom system, provides crystal clear communication with no echo and great sound quality. This is a device that is professionally installed into vehicles, so it's always powered on, and it also connects to your CAN bus, so it does provide fleet management tools. In terms of the competitive environment, I suggested to you that this is the only device in the market. There are competing devices, of course, but none of them are dedicated in-vehicle devices that are connected to the vehicle, such as ours. Of course, you can take a smartphone and put in a car kit, but the sound quality will suffer, and it's really not designed for that type of environment. In the middle is the traditional two-way radio. That's the market that is going away. That is your traditional, what we call it, CB type radio. However, those devices, as we talked about before, are quite expensive and they have limited functionality. Of course, you can use a rugged tablet, but you can't make cellular calls on that. And there are options to use modems, but you need companion devices to provide all the same functionality. So what is it that our device, what makes it unique and what is driving the adoption of our device beyond what is happening in terms of the transition within the US market is the eventual cost savings and the increased functionality, safety, and network coverage. I have a great quote on the bottom here from one of our key customers, Fairfax County in Virginia, which saved them more than $16 million in upfront costs, that's their CapEx, and more than $2 million annual, which is a massive decrease in their OpEx. The reason being, land mobile radio systems are quite old. They require lots of maintenance, not only on the devices within the vehicle, but also the networks themselves, which are difficult to find technicians and very expensive to maintain. So cost has been a very big driver for adoption of our technology. Moving on to the second category, these are our rugged phones. These are purpose-built devices with dedicated buttons with immediate push-to-talk, SOS buttons. They are all ruggedized, waterproof, and they are designed specifically for users in mind. How we differentiate in this market, as it is a larger market segment, clearly more competitive as you have players like Samsung and Apple, etc. However, those players typically would take their consumer-grade phones, wrap it with a skin and call it a ruggedized device. Our devices are designed to be rugged from the get-go. Not only that, we don't need to have the latest chipsets. We don't need to have a 6-inch screen with 4K resolution. We provide a dedicated device that is purpose-built with the exact functionality only required. As a result, we can be a low-cost disruptor and provide the exact same solution for what our end markets require at a fraction of the price. So that's the key advantage that we have versus our competitors, but it also works in companion with our other devices. Our third product category is cellular boosters, of which we have three primary variants. In the middle, you'll see three pictures. On the far left, we have an in-building device. This can go in your home or it can go in warehouses, and depending on the power requirements, we have different price points for those devices. We have one that can go directly into your vehicle, so it can provide boosted cellular connection while you're in your car. And we most recently launched one that also connects directly to our flagship UV350 device. With regards to the consumer market, we would sell online. At the very bottom, you'll see we sell with Amazon, Costco, etc. But we also sell directly through our unit and website. Within the other devices that go to in-vehicle and our companion devices to our core products, we would sell through our same carrier channels. So the big advantage for our product portfolio is even though we are a very small company, we have competitors in each of our product divisions. No one else sells the same breadth of products that we have in these three product categories, and they all sell to the same end customers through the same channels. So we find there's a lot of leverage of that. With regards to the competitive environment in the cellular booster market, there are a couple of key large players, but most of them primarily operate only within the consumer market. The biggest being Wilson, and they sell the WeBoost brand. The other large player within the market segment that we are going after is Nextivity. They are the only other company that we are aware of that sells their products into the carrier channel. We are fortunate enough to hire one of their key salesmen most recently, and we are now finding tremendous opportunities within our booster business. In fact, during the lockdown, with more and more people working from home, we've seen a tremendous increase in demand for our boosters, up almost 2x year on year versus last year, and this is going to be a record year for our booster sales this year. How do we get to our products to market? We are a small company and we plan to stay that way. We have roughly 28 people today. We do not anticipate we will need to hire many more people to address the end markets that we are looking at. In terms of the core channels that we have, AT&T, FirstNet, Motorola, Verizon, Bell and Rogers are our largest customers. And what we do is we leverage their channels. They have hundreds, thousands of salesmen that are dealing with their end customers. We would work with their dealers who then introduce us to their customers. And then through that, the customers ultimately would provide the purchase order to the carriers, and then we deliver our product to the carriers. So we provide, the carriers channel has been tremendous in providing lots of leverage. So we can grow quite a bit larger and not hire that many more people. We envision 3, 4, maybe 5 more hires over the course of time as we continue to build out our network within the US. Our sales pipe has been growing tremendously over the past little while. Over the last year, it has doubled roughly year on year to $31 million. Our ultimate goal is to get to $100 million in terms of our sales pipe. How we break that out is, as you can see from the blue boxes, when we first are introduced to customers through our carrier channels and a customer expressed interest in our product, we put that into a category called prospects or customer engagements, which that currently accounts for $16 million. Once those customers have taken to the next step and we have delivered 3 or 4 units as proof of concept and they are under trials, that would account for the second box there for $15 million. Ultimately, we want to convert that proof of concept and trial customers as quickly as possible to purchase orders. And this is the process we are undergoing at the moment. Customers can take anywhere from 4 to 6, sometimes 8 weeks to finish their trials and ultimately convert to a customer. Taking a look at how our revenue mix has changed over the course of time. If you look back to the first half of 2019, that's the left pie chart, you'll see that roughly 1/3 of our revenues came from North America and 2/3 came from the rest of the world. The rest of the world, most of that product portfolio consisted of 3G products, of which our gross margins are quite low at roughly 25%. The benefit now is as we shift towards the first half of 2020, you'll see that North America now represents 2/3 of our revenues. The benefit of that is North America is only 4G sales. 4G sales for our products in North America generate roughly 40% gross margin. So over the course of time, you've seen our gross margin profile increase from roughly 27% in the first half of 2019 to 33% in the first half of 2020. We expect as our product portfolio continues to shift to 4G products and primarily within the US market, that a gross margin profile will continue to benefit. The purpose of this slide is just to demonstrate to investors that we've been around for many years. We know how to deliver product. We've generated almost 63 million in revenues to date. What you'll see is this is the growth of primarily of our 3G product portfolio from 2014 to 2017. As the market shifted from 3G to 4G, you'll see the revenues decline going into 2018 and 2019. And as I suggested earlier, our efforts to grow our 4G product portfolio only began in earnest in 2020. So you're starting to see the mix improve in our favor. That's why the gross margins ticked up to 25% in 2019. And we'll continue to see that shift improve going to 2020 and beyond. Most recently, we successfully uplisted to the NASDAQ, and we raised $13.3 million in gross proceeds. That came with a full warrant priced at $6.85. This is a 5-year warrant that is tradable, 2.4 million warrants outstanding. So if you look at our basic share count, it's just over 3 million shares. We have over 2 million warrants that came with that deal, another 200,000 warrants from past transactions, but those are far out of the money. What I would point out here as well is our convertible debenture. We have 2 of them, one of them due June 2021, that's $1.2 million. That was a convertible debenture that is owned by 2 institutions that had rolled it forward. That was originally due in June 2020, they had rolled that forward 1 year. And we have another convertible debenture due December 2021 for $5.9 million, and that is owned largely by Canadian institutions. Pasgot and Moore were the 2 largest investors that came into the NASDAQ round, and they are now Pasgot owns 15%, Moore 5%. Excel has been one of the original investors. They've been diluted through several rounds of financing, now down to 6%, and management and board likewise has been diluted, now down to 2%. One of the key things to note here with this slide and why we put this on is everything prior to 2020 was about getting carrier qualifications. That happened with AT&T just in the middle of 2019, and it happened with Verizon just at the very end of 2019. We only then hired our dedicated sales team to manage the Verizon account in Q1 2020, with AT&T, with Verizon in Q3, and most recently hired our dedicated salesman for our booster sales in Q4. So 2020 and going forward is going to be focused on growing revenue and hitting eventual profitability. So to summarize, we are a small cap company, clearly. We have established and completed a number of key benchmarks that, in my view, are not reflected in the value that you see today in the stock. Achieving carrier approvals is a long, difficult, arduous process, and a small company like ours, clearly the carriers would not undertake that process unless they believed it was a significant market opportunity, of which we clearly agree. In sum, if you look at all the addressable markets that we are addressing, it totals roughly $20 billion. Our backlog continues to grow. COVID has clearly had an impact on our business, and it slowed our deployments in the enterprise market, but it has also helped our other parts of our business, such as our cellular boosters. As I suggested before, we have tremendous operating leverage with our small team, and we don't anticipate to grow very much larger, and we're very proud of the strong team that we've built to date to help us execute on our plan. So with that, I'll end our presentation there and open up the call to questions.
That's great. We'll see if we have any questions from the panelists. Tony Fitzgerald, are you with us, and do you have any questions? You have to unmute yourself. Tony?
Yes,
Mike,
can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
I think you've got a great differentiated product in a very crowded space, and there is clearly a need for coordination and communication among the various agencies. And I was wondering what kind of regulatory headwinds you'd found trying to get municipality A to talk to municipality B when their rules may or may not allow that to happen.
Sorry, if I understand your question correctly, you are talking about getting municipal approvals for deployment of our products?
No, I'm talking about whether the municipalities themselves allow you to talk to other municipalities, or is there any resistance for them to connect with other first responders in other areas that may or may not be part of FirstNet?
Okay, so if I understand your question correctly, then as land mobile radio is the incumbent technology today, there are encumbrances to that technology, as there are incompatibility issues between municipalities that are using different land mobile radio systems. With regards to push to talk over cellular, because that is based on AT&T's network with a dedicated bandwidth that goes nationwide, there are no compatibility issues. And that is one of the big encumbrances that we are solving today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Doug, are you there? Let's check in on Jeffrey Masseri. Jeffrey, do you have a question today?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Oops, you just remuted, Jeffrey.
Oh,
there you go.
Is that better? Yeah.
Yes. Oh. One more time. There we go.
That's better. First question is, what's your cash balance at the moment?
Well, we've only announced second quarter results, and at that time, we typically carry roughly $1 to $2 million of cash on the balance sheet. If you're not including the debt that we've talked about already, we did raise $13.3 million in gross proceeds. And what I would suggest to you is a significant portion of that is going to working capital to help us manage our growth. So we needed to purchase inventory for customers and across our three product categories. And we just introduced our latest product category, the boosters, into North America. So when we talked about our sales pipe as an example, what I didn't point out was that $31 million in sales pipe is coming mostly from our UV350 and mostly for FirstNet. We have not built in our forecast model as of yet to include the other two product categories, which we are working on at the moment.
So what is your burn, and when do you foresee reaching positive cash flow?
Well, we don't provide specific forecasts, but certainly that is a high priority for the firm. At the moment, if you look at our historical financials, we are burning roughly $1 or $2 million per quarter. What we have suggested to investors in the past is our historical break-even rate was roughly $5 million per quarter in Canadian. That's Canadian dollars. It has crept up a little bit because it is more expensive to operate on the NASDAQ with various regulatory requirements, and we have made this a couple of key hires. So our fixed costs have increased modestly. Our goal now is to continue to grow the company, and what we hope to accomplish is, based on this raise, is that this would be sufficient capital to get us to cash flow positive.
Thank you. I have one last quick question, and that is, what is your conversion rate from trial to firm order?
From trial to firm order, it's been quite high. I'd say what's well north of 50%. Our goal is to get to close to 100%. The beauty of these trials that we have with the UV350 is we have no competitive products. So once a municipality has decided that it's become too onerous and too difficult and too expensive to manage their LMR networks, and we are the only solution for an in-vehicle device if they want one that is dedicated. There are instances where a handheld will work better. There are many instances where a dedicated device that is hardwired into a vehicle works better. And I'll give you a perfect example. When you have a trucking company, you'll need a dedicated device that is hardwired to the vehicle, identifies the vehicle, that'll have multiple drivers. Then you would hand off and give a rugged device to each driver. So generally speaking, we have quite a high success rate. It's just a question of timing and a question of how budgets, and it's a question of how they deploy. Some customers that are quite small will fully change over their fleet. Others that have thousands or tens of thousands of vehicles in their fleet will take more time.
Well, thank you very much. I think you've done a great job considering COVID.
Thanks very much.
Hi, next, Martin DeBovis, do you have any questions?
Is the push to call strictly on through the AT&T network? And how is Verizon? Is that for selling the rugged device, or what's your relationship with Verizon?
And that's an excellent question. So Verizon was the incumbent in the push to talk, in the land mobile arena. They had the original contract through consortium, and they lost that to AT&T. So we became qualified with Verizon at the end of 2019 and hired our salesman to manage that account in Q3. So that business is just ramping now. Verizon is doing everything they can to defend their current dominant market share position within that market space. AT&T clearly is aggressively pushing its products and our solutions to grow its subscriber base. So we are selling the exact same products to both companies. Our products work on all the networks within North America, so we do not have to provide any customized products. So that has been a terrific advantage for us. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. But the cellular, is that strictly on the Verizon network, or the AT&T network? If I push the call, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's called band 14. It's 700. It's at the 700 megahertz spectrum. So that is owned by the government, that they've dedicated specifically for first responders. Consumers do not have access to that network. So you'll never get a situation like 9/11 where everyone's trying to call their loved ones and the systems become bogged down and they crash. So they also have other redundancies built in to ensure that those networks don't go down.
Is the product more widely accepted in other countries than the U.S., or is it about the same in each country?
It is in other market segments, and we sell to international markets such as Australia and other parts of Europe. Canada clearly is there, but a little bit further behind. But the U.S. market is by far the largest opportunity, and that's where our current focus is.
Well, great. Really quite interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I had a couple of quick questions. You made reference to the fact that a given municipality might decide it was tired of its existing system and want to change. How often does that happen? What triggers it? Are you running into any headwinds because all these municipalities think they have no money because of COVID?
Right. I wouldn't necessarily think that municipalities are our end customers. It typically is first responders and enterprise customers. So these are customers that are finding that they have limited functionality with their land mobile radio devices. Keep in mind, most of the land mobile radios today in use are still analog systems. They are only now transitioning over to digital technology. That gives them a little bit more flexibility in terms of the media that they can send, but it's still a very low bandwidth solution. The other problem with land mobile radio is you can either pay a third party and pay $40, $50 per month, much like your cell phone bill. But if you're large enough, and if you are a municipality or a large company, you would have and operate your own land mobile radio network. Those are very expensive to build and maintain. And in fact, some of our customers are telling us that they are having difficulty finding technicians to upgrade their hardware. So it's becoming more and more problematic. This is why the land mobile radio net market is in fact declining. And we're finding that the push to talk over cellular solutions are now displacing that very market segment.
You made a comment earlier about for the first couple of years that the idea was to get yourself in good with AT&T and Verizon. and then you switched to the 4G. Why were you late, if you were, to 4G? And are you, in effect, now taking off and getting started, whereas before this, it was all getting ready to get started?
I'm so sorry, you cut out a little bit at the end there. I didn't quite get your question.
When you spent a lot of time getting ready to get started with AT&T and Verizon and get on the, like what I call the 4G, you're now there. So can we look at the future as the future and the past as getting ready for the future? And the company's really now ready to get going? You have an installed base and you have your licenses with AT&T and Verizon?
Correct. That's correct. Yeah. And that was a process that took several years to undertake. The carriers, getting into the carrier channel as a small Israeli startup company back 5 years ago, 6 years ago, was a large undertaking. FirstNet was just beginning. It was a network not really widely understood and known, and bringing in a product that the market had never seen before. It was a difficult task to get to the carriers, convince them that there was a market for it, and developing those channels and awareness, and now educating their sales team, internal sales team, to sell this to their end customers has taken a long time. And our 4G products are now very uniquely positioned to change that market. And one thing I'll add to that you did not ask is, and no one's asked yet, is 5G. At the moment, you see a lot of press on 5G. A lot of the carriers, particularly in the US, like to advertise how many cities they are in with their 5G technology. But the reality is 5G is nowhere near ready for outside deployments. The signal attenuation is far too fast. Millimeter waves can literally be blocked by a little bit of rain or a leaf. So it works great for indoor environments, enclosed networks such as stadiums, but not so great in outside. Having said that, customers are demanding it somewhat, and they are interested and curious about it. It is on our roadmap, but at the moment, all the devices, all you need is 4G. You don't need 5G bandwidth to provide the functionality that you need for first responders need. There's more than enough bandwidth. There's no lag issues, so it works perfectly well for our end customers.
Great, thank you. Scott, do we have any questions from the audience?
Yes, we do. In fact, a few of them were just answered. In fact, I had one here on 5G, as someone asked, but you answered it perfectly. First question would be, is there any kind of mandate to use FirstNet for large first responder organizations, or is it discretionary?
That's a great question. It is discretionary. So AT&T was federally mandated to build out their network to a certain degree, and they receive federal subsidies as a result, and they've been hitting all those milestones. Likewise, on the subscriber growth, you clearly can't force a jurisdiction to adopt new technology, but AT&T, why they are aggressively pushing it, not only are they federally mandated to grow their subscriber base, they are also financially motivated. They are taking someone off a land mobile radio, of which they are not receiving any revenues clearly, and they are generating a new SIM card for any new vehicle or any new rugged device. So they are highly motivated to continue to deploy these solutions, including the solutions that we have.
Do you have any figures on the uptake for the first responder network, not just with your product, but just in general?
In general, yes. In fact, that was part of the presentation. So FirstNet is now up to 1.7 million subscribers worldwide in the US. And that is up roughly 1 million subs over the last 14 months. And they have 14,000 public safety agencies now signed up. So these are numbers that are growing very rapidly. They started off relatively slow, but we're just on the high end of the growth curve now.
Nice. Next question. Do you have any estimates on how much your fleet clients have saved by replacing legacy tech with yours?
Another great question. So it depends on how you want to look at the money saved. So if you look at a two-way radio, right here in the middle, they are very expensive devices, and they sell anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 for the in-vehicle devices. We've seen prices as high as $13,000 for the very high-end device. Our flagship device, the UV350, sells for $1,000 Canadian. The carriers often subsidize it, so the end customer often pays half of that. Relative to, say, a smartphone, as you know, Samsung, Apple phones, etc., they sell for anywhere from $750 to $1,200, and the prices only seem to be going higher every year. So on a relative basis, our products are significantly cheaper. Our rugged phones, we're coming in at a low-cost price point. What we're hoping is that the carriers will continue to subsidize those products once they come into the North American market, and will be even much more price competitive relative to our competitors. So we are disrupting the market in multiple ways. With our in-vehicle device, we're the only player, and we have a much lower cost solution. We have the rugged devices, which provide specific functionality and are purpose-built, and they're a low-cost disruptor. And then we have our cellular boosters, which are leveraging off the exact same channels and sold as a companion device with our other two flagship devices.
Thank you. Speaking of cellular boosters, what percentage of your sales do you expect from the cell network boosters to be, and by when?
We don't really disclose how we break out our revenues. This is something we've never done, so I have to be careful in terms of what I disclose to investors. Suffice to say that the bulk of the revenues for the company clearly are the UV350. This is the product that came to North America first. This is what's driving the bulk of our sales pipeline. The boosters have seen significant growth. A lot of that growth to date has been in international markets, so clearly smaller market segments. We have just launched that into the North American market with our most recent product category, and these are designed specifically for FirstNet. So we've seen growth on that within a lot of it. In fact, a lot of the growth came back on the back of Canada with work from home. And we're hoping now, as we enter the US market through our carrier partners, that we'll see accelerated growth. And then our rugged phones, likewise, have only been selling into international markets. And we're hoping that product category will come into the North American market shortly as well.
Thank you. Where are the devices manufactured, and have you had any supply chain issues?
We've been very fortunate with regards to finding virtually no disruption to our supply chain during COVID. I know that's affected a lot of the electronic supply chain globally. We work with a third-party contract manufacturer overseas, and they manufacture we design all of our products in Israel and manufacture them all overseas.
Great. Well, that was the last question from the audience. Thank you, audience, for sending those questions in.
Well, thank you very much.
Go ahead, Doug.
No, my apologies.
Do you have any last words for us, Daniel? Is there one thing you want us to remember about Siyata Mobile as we trundle off into the day?
Yes, in fact, Siyata Mobile is a unique hardware play. We have accomplished a lot for a very small cap company, which we believe is not reflected in the price. We are providing disruptive solutions. We have a unique opportunity to continue to grow significantly in a very large and growing market. We have terrific devices. We have next generation devices on the table. We expected to launch those in short order. And we continue to find niche opportunities as we speak to more and more customers to deliver unique differentiated products into the market. And that's how we're going to differentiate ourselves. But one last thing I would offer up is, no one asked in terms of recurring revenues. While we are a hardware company and each sale typically is one-off, we have several areas in which we would call so-called recurring, but maybe not recurring, but it does recur. So with larger customers, we tend to deploy in over the course of time. So we have great visibility with our large customers and how we deploy our hardware solutions with them. Number two, we have a lot of accessory sales that go with our devices. We have external microphones, we have boosters, we have various cradles. So those accessory sales can add up to several $100s per device. And lastly, over the course of time, and if we've already established this model with one of our key carriers in an international market, as we build our install base and we have a larger install base from which to leverage with our customers, we will implement more and more a recurring revenue model on the software side. We will open up the platform for various third-party applications such as fleet management tools, and we'll take a piece of the action as they download onto our network. So I think this is a company that is one to watch as we continue to grow within the North American market, and we continue to provide disruptive solutions. So thanks very much for your time and interest.
That's great. Thank you so much.